Welcome to another episode of Hustle Basketball Talk. I'm joined today by forward and current pro Stacy Davis. Stacy, thank you so much for joining the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Of course, man. So, wanted to start off, being born in San Diego, raised in California, and then moving to Arizona. What was the basketball scene like for you growing up? And then, what age did you fall in love with the game and really start taking it seriously?
So the first sport I really loved was football, and that was my thing. Eddie George. Who else? It was Eddie George, the running back for the Denver Broncos. I think there was one more player that were my favorites.
Yeah.
And so for the longest, I wanted to play football. But growing up, I was always bigger than the kids my age, and so at that point, you'd have to play a few ages up, and my mom wasn't going for that. So at some point, I picked up a basketball, and I kind of fell in love with it. I'd probably say maybe around 7, 8.
Okay.
And so when we moved to Arizona, this was then my first experience with AAU basketball, club basketball. Probably I started doing that around maybe like 12, 13, something like that.
Yeah.
But coming up in Arizona, the basketball scene, man, it was different. You know, I was a lot of times the tallest guy on teams that I was on, or I was the biggest guy on teams that I was on. And, you know, I stand at, 6'6". So for me to be the tallest person and be playing at that point, playing the 4 and the 5,
Yeah.
it was a little bit different because I know had I had my family stayed in California, because there's so many athletes there, the opportunity for me to play at a different position where I'm not the big,
Could have been on the wing as a 3 or a 2 potentially.
exactly,
Yeah.
potentially. So it was good though, man, because I got to experience club basketball. I got to travel. I got to meet a lot of lifelong friends that I know. But it definitely, I can't even say it was different because, to be honest, I hadn't really experienced a lot of basketball in California prior to, because I was so involved in football.
Yeah.
And so once I got to Arizona, that was kind of what I switched to, was just playing basketball. And, I fell in love with it ever since then. And been playing probably since I was, 10 years old. That's when we moved. So.
Okay, got you. And then once you're playing competitively in Arizona and you have a strong high school career, you're a Division I prospect. What was the recruiting process like for you coming out of high school, choosing Pepperdine and going to compete in the WCC?
Yeah, so my first 2 years of playing club were they were just a little bit like, I was, again, undersized and didn't really have the touch and the shooting prowess that I do now. So I was still growing into my body and just kind of figuring out the game. But I'll never forget the first big AAU tournament that I played was in Vegas, and we played against, I'm blanking on his name, something Terrence, is left-handed guy. He went to Kentucky.
Terrence Jones.
And Terrence Jones.
Yeah.
And he had the first, I believe, Ball is Life mixtape.
Yeah.
And we were on that tape a lot. So that was my first experience of real high-level basketball, where you're playing against somebody that's, going to a blue blood college, projected NBA pick, everything. So do that. And then that was kind of my freshman year, sophomore year, kind of figuring it out. And then I believe maybe around my sophomore summer, junior summer, was when we played in the first EYBL.
Okay.
So played in that, and I'm playing against a lot of high-level guys: Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Austin Rivers, Nick Foss, Akil Carr, a lot of guys that have played at a lot of places and that are still pros to this day, a lot of NBA players.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take that experience and I come back to AZ, and I'm just like, man, you know what? If I could do what I'm doing against these guys, I can kill in Arizona. And so around my junior year, my recruiting kind of got a little bit more athletic, grew into my body a little bit. And then Pepperdine was actually my first visit. I went to their camp, and it was me. I went there with a good friend of mine now, Cam Boone. We were matched up against each other, but I was there playing against some of their guys. I did well. And so I think it was maybe like a week later, Coach Wilson offered me a scholarship. And the way that I see it is, once you get that first one, they all start to roll in, because then, coaches start to say, oh, he's good enough to play at this level. Somebody sees
take a chance on him. We might as well.
Exactly. So ended up getting, I think I had around 15 or 16 offers. My final three came down to Fresno State, Pep, and St. Mary's. So I ended up going to Pepperdine. I just felt really comfortable with Coach Wilson. And I was actually being recruited by Damon Lopez, who's actually a Arizona legend, and he held one of the records at Pepperdine for, I think it was best three-point shooting percentage or most threes made in Pep history or something of that nature.
Mhm.
But so he had ties to Pepperdine as well, and he was a coach there for a little bit. But
Got
that's kind of how I ended up at Pep, man. Just kind of my recruiting took off my junior year, and was fortunate enough to end up at a great place like Pep.
Absolutely. And it's a beautiful campus. You really can't beat like living in California. It's
Man,
Malibu, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Like 3 minutes from the beach.
you cannot beat that. Yeah. And then competing in the WCC for 4 years, having an extremely successful career, finishing at the time as the all-time leading scorer. As we
Mhm.
spoke about, surpassed by Kobe Ross, but
Right.
having a great career there. What was your experience like there, competing for 4 years, and what did it, mean to you having that success there?
So playing in the WCC, man, was great. And at the time, we're still a mid-major conference, and I think it's gotten a little bit more notoriety now. We've gotten the teams have gotten progressively better. Back when my freshman year was maybe a 2-3 big conference, which was good. It was like the top three: BYU, Gonzaga, and St. Mary's were some usually locked in to get into the tournament. But it was a dope experience, man. I played against Matthew Dellavedova. I played against, who was also on St. Mary's, Stephen Holt. He's a really good player. He's played all over Europe. Sam Dower, Kelly Olynyk, Shimon Karnowski, Kyle Wiltshire, just to name a few. So there was a lot of talent within the WCC that I played up against, and I matched up well against. Felt like I held my own. And so to be honest, to have that experience was great, man. I had no plans on breaking any records. To be honest, I really was just, part of my reason for going was my mom was so adamant about education, and Pepperdine is a world-renowned school. I don't know if it still has this stature now, but when I went, it was a top 50 university in the country. And so,
I think it still is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very renowned
Yeah.
university. And so I didn't have any goals. Like, I wasn't thinking, oh, I want to do this to be a pro. I want to break this record. I want to do this. It wasn't until maybe, honestly, going into my junior year that things just started to work out that way. I started seeing some things from the media team, started getting some write-ups nationally. People just started to take notice here and there.
Mhm.
And we started to get more TV games and, playing well against BYU, St. Mary's, Gonzaga on ESPN, ESPN2 was always good. So that just taught me, man, that and actually, you know what? I'll never forget this. I was downstairs shooting in the gym one day. It's like late at night, man. It's like 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And this janitor was in there. He was just cleaning. And so I was getting shots up and I was about to finish, and he walks on the court and he just starts chopping it up with me. And this is probably my freshman year. And he says, "You're here for a reason." And that just really resonated with me because I have never seen him ever again. And I've spent many nights shooting late night in the gym, never seen him ever again. And it just kind of let me know to really take basketball and my opportunity to play Division I basketball at Pepperdine seriously. And so, that experience it just meant a lot, bro. It just showed me that I can take this sport as far as I want to when I, put my mind to it, when I put the dedication to my craft into it, when I just focus. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, is just understanding that although something might not necessarily be within your plans,
Yeah.
unintentionally, you're like preparing yourself and giving yourself an opportunity to do something greater that you might not even know about. And so always just remaining focused and just primed in whatever opportunity you have and making the most of it, regardless of what's going on. So I think that's kind of what my experience at that time.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, like you definitely got to stay present in the moments you're in, because you never know what could prepare you for down the line. And, staying ready, key for that. And then after your 4-year career there, an extremely successful one, you decide to pursue a professional career overseas. You're now in your 6th year. What has it been like, being a pro for 6 years, going to a variety of different countries? So that
Right.
experience of traveling the world and also the competition overseas, it's a lot different than the United States. It's a more physical game. It's more strategic.
Mhm.
So can you just talk about your experience being overseas and also the lifestyle aspect as well?
Yeah, man, it's been, for the most part, it's been good. Some years it'll be a little bit tougher than most, just depending on your situation, team you're on, city, country. But for the most part, it's been good, man. Being able to see different countries, being able to experience different cultures has always been really dope to me. I'll be able to give that experience to, my family members, my daughter, and just it just means a lot.
Yeah.
But basketball, man, it's a lot different. Like you said, it's a lot tougher.
Yeah.
It's a lot more strategic, and depending on the country you are in, the play style is a lot different. So having to adapt to different styles of coaching, different schemes, different just like ways that the game is called or how they see the game, or even just adapting to the local players and saying, okay, what is this country's best? What does this country's best local players look like? So some countries you'll have where they have really good guards, or they'll have really tall, linky, athletic wings, or they'll just be known for really big, bruising big men.
Yeah.
That's just something you have to start to take notice of and really progress and understand that throughout the season. But
I gotta adapt to it as well.
yeah, you definitely have to adapt. But for the most part, man, it's been good. And the lifestyle has been different. It's changed me in a lot of ways, just the way that I think, the way that I view not only America, but just life in general, because you get to go to these different cultures. And for instance, when I was in France, I'll never forget, they have these elongated lunch breaks. And the joke was French people are known, like, they do not like to work. It's like a running joke with them, with the people in France. And so for the longest, I was like, man, like, why is nobody working? Nobody wants to make money, this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
And then I started to think, I'm like, man, that's really me just coming from America, and everything is open all the time. Everything is about money. Everything is kind of centered around capitalism or whatever. And what I found out is, in specific countries, they really value family. They really value that time with your loved ones. So that 2-hour lunch break, that's like a lunch break. People go home, they're able to see their kids, their wives, their husbands, all of that. And it was the same when I was in Finland. They are very, very big on family. So when mom goes on paternity leave or maternity leave, I forget which one it is, but maternity leave, when they go on maternity leave, whatever job they're working at, they can stay at home for, I think it's up to a year, and get 80% of their check. They can then stay home for another year and get 60%. They can stay home for a third year and get, I think, 40%. And the same goes for the men for paternity leave if they wanted to stay home. So it's just, and just the hours of school are different. And so I say all that to say that the lifestyle, the cultures really shape you as a person. They really allow you to see the world from different viewpoints. They allow you to just broaden your horizons and your world views on just how you operate within the world. So it's been a blessing, man, being able to continue to play basketball and just being able to see the world essentially for free is something that, people essentially might take for granted, but it's a blessing, bro. So I would definitely say that about my experience overseas so far.
That's awesome. And then having the long career that you've had so far, what advice would you give to those who are looking to pursue an overseas career, but also what does it take to have a successful one and not, kind of burn out after 2 or 3 seasons?
Right. I would say if you want to be an overseas basketball player, you gotta love basketball.
Yeah.
Your first year or two, you might get by with just the excitement of playing, basketball overseas, and you might want to post some stuff on Instagram. You're making whatever money you're making, but you're making money playing basketball. That might get you by those first 2 years. But now when you get into 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're hopefully playing in better leagues on better teams, the seasons get longer, the competition gets tougher, the scrutiny gets tougher. everything gets a lot tougher. And at this point, you know, you don't have your support system with you. You might not, if you don't have your family there, you don't have your support system with you. So now you're having to adapt to essentially being alone, being out of your comfort zone, having to adapt to all of this stuff and pursuing a career by yourself and having to, you know, work around that. And you have to stay motivated. You have to stay passionate. You have to stay disciplined. It's so cliche, but when you're playing professionally, especially overseas, it's way more mental than it is physical, because, you know, physically you get to a point to where you get into a routine. Things become automatic. You're working out, it is what it is. You know how to prepare yourself for a game, for practice, for whatever. But it's the minute things where, like, mentally, all right, you're done with practice. Okay, what are you doing in that in between time? All right, that's day 1. This is day 5. You got 270 something days left, whatever it may be. How are you operating and remaining a pro, but more than anything, remaining a person? And just to talk about not burning out, you have to know who you are outside of basketball. And you also have to try to do your best because at this point, basketball is your job. So you have to do your best. And I would just say this for me, you have to do your best to leave your job leave work at work. And when you go home, you are who you are outside of basketball. Because if you take those emotions, whether they be negative, positive, but if you're allowing that to affect who you are personally, and like it does a lot more damage than it does good, because you're by yourself. You have to cope with all these things while you're alone. Whereas if you were fortunate enough to play basketball in the States, you might have a support system, you might have friends, you might have things that you can do. You can go out and interact with people and they speak English. There's just so many things that go into it. But the biggest thing I would say, if you don't want to burn out in this, is you have to know who you are outside of basketball. And you got to find out, you know, what you like outside of the sport, whether that be what you're going to pursue professionally when you're done, or whether it's a hobby. But you definitely need to just be mentally strong and know who you are outside of basketball.
Absolutely. That stuff is all, you know, imperative to just your success on and off the court, because you're probably more refreshed once you go back to the court to practice and play, because you've taken your mind off some things for whatever it may be, maybe a few hours, maybe it's a day, right? Like,
right.
Where it may be, you're probably more refreshed. So, you know, outside of basketball, you know, what are your interests? You know, what do you do when you're not practicing and playing?
So I like to do yoga. That's kind of like my off day thing. It's good active recovery as well. But another thing I like to do within the past couple of years, I haven't done it so much this year, but reading. I really do enjoy reading. I want to learn how to play the piano. I played the trumpet when I was in middle school. Okay. So I want to learn how to play the piano. I most recently, actually within a couple hours, taught myself how to drive a manual car. I never knew how to drive a manual car. Mm-hmm. And I would say another thing that I'm interested in is I'm always thinking about what's next, because one thing that I know with basketball players, and this is another piece of advice I would give, is you should always think about what your second career is going to be. And you should, and at best, try to have an exit plan. Because with corporations, with CEOs, with whatever, they have an exit plan. They know, all right, after this amount of years, this is how we're going to go about me stepping away from the company, or whatever it may be. Basketball is very, in the grand scheme of things, short-lived, because God willing, you're able to play until you're between 33 and 35. You're still young. You still have to, you know, provide for yourself and your family for X amount of years. So with that being said, a big thing for me is always thinking about what next. So I became a certified nutritionist a couple of years ago. I'm really big into nutrition. I'm actually going to start a computer science course now, just to try to gain some knowledge on that. Yeah. But probably I'd say the biggest thing for me outside of basketball is always thinking, what's next? How am I going to pivot into my next career? What does my exit plan look like? So that way, when I'm done playing, I can smoothly transition into a career and not have a lull of 6, 7 months where I don't know what I'm doing.
You're
I
like,
don't know
who
what to
am I?
do.
What do I want to do? Because basketball is a
Exactly.
big part of a lot of players' identity. So you definitely got to have those outside interests and think about, yeah, like you said, what's next? You know, what's my plan?
Absolutely, bro. I feel like that's so paramount is you always got to think who you are outside of basketball, what are you going to do next, and how can you accomplish it? Because one thing we have as overseas basketball players is a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
And I talked to a lot of my friends back home, they're like, man, if I had the downtime you had, I would be doing X, Y, and Z. And so, granted, a lot of times you might be tired, you have other things you need to do, whatever. But if you can, maximize 2, 3 hours in your day that goes towards something that might benefit you down the line when you're done playing basketball, I think that's very paramount for any athlete.
Yeah, 100%, man. And then, transitioning, back to on the court, what do you feel is your biggest strength, right? On the court, having the career you've had, what do you feel
Mhm.
are your biggest strengths on the court that you bring to the team to contribute to winning?
I think that my versatility. I think that I'm able to play a multitude of positions. I think I can defend a multitude of positions,
Yeah.
and just my versatility and my ability to score the ball. I think I've been a pretty solid and renowned scorer throughout my whole career, from whether it be high school all the way to being a professional. And I think that will probably be the biggest part of my game, something that I bring to a team and organization.
Yeah.
But then more than I wouldn't say more than that, but to like to be on side with that,
Yeah.
to be on track with that, would probably be, like I said, my versatility, and then just my ability to play make, whether that be for myself or whether it be for others. Because when you get into the crunch time,
Yeah.
and everybody knows everybody's place. Everybody's stopping the first, the second adjustment, the third adjustment.
Yep.
You need a multitude of people that are going to be able to create something, whether it be for themselves or for somebody else. But you need someone that's able, not just one person, but in a team, you need people that are able to do that. So I would say my ability to do that and my ability to score are probably the two biggest things that I bring to the team.
That's it. That's imperative, man, to winning because you're able to get a bucket, but you're also able to put your teammates in a position to be successful as well to help the team.
Right.
That's super important. And then I like to end the show with, what's your why? What gets you motivated every single day to be the best person you could be on and off the court?
Definitely my daughter.
Yeah.
And before my daughter, it was honestly, I just wanted to be like, I wanted to be the best.
Yeah.
And so I knew, like I said, kind of after that conversation I had with that janitor and probably going into after my sophomore year, my why was I want to be a professional. I want to make money doing this. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to provide for my family. I want to do that. But as obviously after having my daughter, she's my why now. Especially being away for so long, I get up and I'm immediately thinking about her. I remind myself every day, like, okay, you might not feel good today. You might be emotionally drained. You might just feel like, man, I want to go back home. But at the end of the day, you're doing this for not only yourself because you're fulfilling a dream, but you're also doing it for your daughter because you want to be able to continue to provide for her. And so I would say that's probably my why now, man. I've had multiple whys just throughout the course of my career because obviously, you start at one age and you get older.
Develop as a person, so your motivation is always going to change as well.
Absolutely. So I would say my biggest motivation now is really my daughter. Absolutely.
That's awesome, man. That's a great why right there, man. Family's everything, and especially
Mhm.
with your own, that's a different type of feeling in itself. So
Man, very, very different, bro. I'll tell you that.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Really appreciate you being on here, and also look forward to following the rest of your journey. I know you've had a great career so far, and I know it's only going to continue to be great. And then also off the court, I know you're going to be successful as well one day when the ball stops bouncing.
I appreciate that, man, for real.
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks again, Stacy, and look forward to following your journey, man.
Yes, sir.